Rain poured endlessly over Seoul, turning the glowing city lights into blurry reflections across the wet pavement. Taehyung Jungkook adjusted the strap of his camera bag on his shoulder as he stepped out of the hotel building where he had just finished a late photography job. It had been a wedding shoot. A beautiful one. Laughing guests, sparkling decorations, emotional vows. Jungkook loved moments like that. Capturing happiness was the reason he became a photographer. But tonight he felt strangely exhausted. The clock on his phone read 11:47 p.m. Too late, he muttered. Most taxis were already taken, and the rain was getting heavier. He sighed and pulled the hood of his black jacket over his head. Guess I'm walking. The street was quiet. Almost too quiet. The sound of rain hitting the pavement echoed around him as he walked down the empty road toward his apartment building. Jungkook didn't notice the black car slowly turning the corner behind him. Inside the car, 4 men watched him carefully. "He's alone," one of them said. "Good." The driver pressed the accelerator. The car moved closer. 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 Jungkook felt something strange. That uncomfortable feeling that someone was watching him. He turned slightly and froze. A black van suddenly screeched to a stop beside him. Before he could react, the door slid open. 3 masked men jumped out. "What the? Hey, let go." Jungkook struggled violently, kicking and punching with surprising strength. "Damn it, he's fighting. I told you he would." Jungkook slammed his elbow into one man's ribs. The man groaned, but another grabbed Jungkook's wrists. A cloth was suddenly pressed over Jungkook's mouth. A chemical smell filled his nose. His vision blurred. No. His legs weakened. The last thing Jungkook saw was the dark interior of the van as they dragged him inside. Then, everything went black. The rain continued falling as the van disappeared into the night. Jungkook slowly regained consciousness. His head throbbed painfully. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy. His eyes opened slowly. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. The room around him was enormous, elegant, luxurious. A huge king-size bed, dark wooden furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft golden lighting. It looked more like a 5-star hotel suite than a prison. Jungkook sat up suddenly. What the hell? Then he remembered everything. Jungkook jumped off the bed and rushed toward door. He twisted the handle. Nothing. Locked. He slammed his fist against it. "Hello?" No answer. Panic began rising in his chest. Where am I? He ran to the windows. Outside stretched an enormous garden surrounded by tall iron gates. And beyond them, dense forest. No city. No buildings. Nothing. Am I in the middle of nowhere? Just then, the door clicked open. Jungkook spun around. A tall man stepped inside. Behind him stood 2 armed guards. The man wore a black suit. His posture was calm, confident, dangerously calm. His dark eyes studied Jungkook like he was analyzing a puzzle. Jungkook's anger exploded instantly. "You!" Jungkook stormed toward him. "Who the hell are you? Why did you kidnap me?" The guards tensed, but the man raised his hand slightly. They stepped back. His voice was deep and quiet. "Relax." Jungkook nearly laughed. Relax, you kidnapped me. The man walked slowly toward the large window, ignoring Jungkook's shouting. Then he turned slightly. My name is Kim Taehyung. Jungkook froze. The name sounded strangely familiar. From rumors, from news whispers. Kim Taehyung, one of the most feared mafia leaders in Seoul. Jungkook felt his stomach drop. You're joking. Taehyung's expression didn't change. No. Silence filled the room. Jungkook clenched his fists. What do you want from me? Taehyung studied him quietly. Then he said something unexpected. You'll stay here for a while. Jungkook blinked. What? You'll stay here, Taehyung repeated calmly. Jungkook's anger exploded. Are you insane? I have a job, a life. Taehyung didn't react to the yelling. His gaze remained steady. If you leave this place, he said quietly, you will die. The words sent a chill through the room. Jungkook stared at him. Is that supposed to scare me? Taehyung tilted his head slightly. It's not a threat. A long pause. Then he said calmly, it's a fact. Jungkook paced around the luxurious room like a trapped tiger. This is ridiculous. Kidnapped by a mafia leader. For absolutely no reason. None of it made sense. He stopped pacing and glared at Taehyung, who sat calmly in a chair near the window. How long do you think you can keep me here? Taehyung crossed his legs. As long as necessary. Jungkook scoffed. You're crazy. Taehyung didn't respond. That calmness irritated Jungkook even more. You think you can just kidnap people whenever you want? Still silence. Jungkook walked closer. I'm not staying here. Taehyung finally looked at him again. You don't have a choice. Jungkook laughed sarcastically. Watch me. Before anyone could stop him, Jungkook rushed past the guards and ran out of the room. Down the hallway. His footsteps echoed across the enormous mansion. He spotted a staircase leading down. Freedom. He sprinted toward the large front doors. Two guards tried to block him. Jungkook shoved past them. The doors burst open. Cold rain hit his face. Jungkook ran across the garden. Stop him, someone shouted behind him. But Jungkook was fast. The iron gate was only a few meters away. Almost there. Almost. Bang. A loud gunshot echoed through the night. Something exploded beside Jungkook's head. A piece of the stone wall shattered. Jungkook froze. Another shot rang out. Bang. The bullet struck the gate inches from his hand. His heart nearly stopped. A sniper. There was a sniper outside the gate. Footsteps rushed toward him. Strong arms grabbed Jungkook from behind. Taehyung pulled him back forcefully. Are you crazy? Jungkook struggled. Let go. Taehyung dragged him back toward the mansion. Only once they were safely inside did he release him. Jungkook's chest rose and fell rapidly. His heart pounded violently. Taehyung looked at him with a mixture of irritation and concern. I warned you. Jungkook stared at him. You set that up. Taehyung's expression hardened. No. He stepped closer. They weren't aiming to scare you. Another pause. They were aiming to kill you. Jungkook felt the blood drain from his face. What? Taehyung's voice was quiet but deadly serious. There are people outside this estate who want you dead. Jungkook laughed nervously. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Silence. Jungkook shook his head. This makes no sense. I'm just a photographer. Taehyung studied him carefully. That's exactly the problem. Jungkook frowned. What does that mean? Taehyung stood up. We'll talk about it later. Jungkook grabbed his arm. No, you kidnapped me. You explain now. Taehyung slowly looked down at Jungkook's hand gripping his sleeve. For a moment, his expression softened slightly. Then he gently removed Jungkook's hand. You're alive because you're here. He walked toward the door. Before leaving, he said one final sentence. Outside this mansion. His dark eyes met Jungkook's. You wouldn't survive the night. The door closed behind him. Jungkook stood there in stunned silence. His mind raced. Kidnapped. Snipers. People trying to kill him. What the hell is going on? Morning sunlight streamed through the massive windows of the bedroom. For a moment, Jungkook forgot everything. The soft bed, the quiet room, the warm sunlight. It felt peaceful. Then reality crashed back into his mind. Kidnapped. Snipers. A mafia leader. Jungkook shot up from the bed. Right, this nightmare. He quickly walked to the door and tried the handle again. Locked. Of course. He sighed in frustration. After a few minutes, the door opened. One of the guards stepped inside. Breakfast is ready. Jungkook crossed his arms. Am I a guest or a prisoner? The guard didn't answer. Follow me. Jungkook rolled his eyes but walked behind him down the hallway. The mansion was enormous. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, large paintings covering the walls. Everything looked like something from a billionaire's palace. Wow, Jungkook muttered sarcastically. Kidnapped and upgraded to luxury. They entered a huge dining hall. Kim Taehyung sat at the long table, calmly drinking coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. His dark eyes lifted when Jungkook walked in. Sit. Jungkook dropped into the chair across from him. You know, Jungkook said, grabbing a piece of toast, most kidnappers don't serve breakfast. Taehyung ignored the comment. They ate in silence for a moment. Jungkook suddenly stood up. I want to go outside. Taehyung didn't even look up. No. Jungkook slammed his hand on the table. I'm not a prisoner. Taehyung calmly placed his coffee cup down. You are? The simple answer made Jungkook furious. You can't keep me locked here forever. Taehyung leaned back slightly. I'm not keeping you here forever. Then let me leave. No. Jungkook clenched his fists. Why? Taehyung finally met his eyes. Because outside this mansion there are at least 6 different groups trying to kill you. Silence filled the room. Jungkook stared at him. You're lying. Taehyung didn't respond. That silence was more terrifying than words. Jungkook forced himself to laugh. Okay, let's say I believe you. He leaned forward. Then tell me why. No answer. Taehyung simply returned to eating his breakfast. Jungkook groaned in frustration. God, you're annoying. Why would someone want to kill him? He was just a photographer. His life was simple, quiet. There were no enemies, no dangerous secrets, nothing. Or at least, that's what he believed. The sound of footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Jungkook looked up. Taehyung walked into the room.
His black shirt sleeves were rolled slightly, and his expression was serious. Jungkook stood up immediately. "You owe me an explanation," he said. Taehyung didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked to the table and placed a folder on it. Then he looked directly at Jungkook. "Someone placed a bounty on your life." Jungkook frowned. "A what?" "A bounty." Taehyung's voice was calm, but the words felt heavy. 1 billion won. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Jungkook laughed. A nervous laugh. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." Taehyung opened the folder and slid it toward him. Inside were printed photos. Photos of Jungkook. His workplace. His apartment. His daily routine. Jungkook's stomach dropped. These were taken without me knowing." "Yes." Jungkook slowly looked up. "So someone is paying 1 billion won just to kill me?" Taehyung nodded. "And many people want that money." Jungkook's hands trembled slightly. "But why?" Taehyung's gaze shifted away. "I'm still figuring that out." Jungkook stared at him. "You kidnapped me because of this?" "Yes." "That's insane." Taehyung's voice softened slightly. "If I didn't take you first, someone else would have." Jungkook suddenly realized something terrifying. If there's a bounty, that means assassins are already searching for me. Taehyung didn't answer. That night, the mansion felt different. Too quiet, too tense. Jungkook couldn't sleep. The truth about the bounty kept replaying in his mind. Someone had offered 1 billion won for his death. 1 billion. That amount could tempt the most dangerous people in the world. He turned over in bed. Sleep refused to come. Then, suddenly, a loud crash echoed somewhere downstairs. Jungkook instantly sat up. Another sound followed. Glass shattering. His heart started racing. Footsteps rushed through the hallway outside. Voices shouted. Then, gunshots. Jungkook's blood ran cold. The door of his room suddenly opened. Taehyung stepped inside. His expression was completely different from before. Focused. Dangerous. "Stay here," he ordered. "What's happening?" Jungkook asked nervously. "They found you." Before Jungkook could respond, another gunshot exploded somewhere nearby. Jungkook flinched. Taehyung turned toward the guards outside. "Protect this room," he said coldly. Then he looked at Jungkook. "For once, listen to me." And he left. The door closed. Jungkook's heart pounded wildly. He couldn't stay still. His curiosity and fear pulled him toward the door. Carefully, he stepped into the hallway. Downstairs, chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed through the mansion. Jungkook slowly moved toward the staircase. Then he saw something that shocked him. Taehyung. He stood in the center of the living room surrounded by armed men. But he looked completely calm. One assassin rushed toward him. Taehyung moved faster. With brutal precision, he disarmed the man and knocked him unconscious in seconds. Another attacker fired a gun. Taehyung dodged and returned fire. The entire scene was terrifying. This wasn't the quiet man Jungkook had spoken to earlier. This was a mafia leader. Cold, lethal, efficient. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. Taehyung noticed him suddenly. Their eyes met across the room. Anger flashed in Taehyung's expression. "What are you doing here?" he shouted. Before Jungkook could answer, a gunshot rang out. A bullet came straight toward the staircase. Taehyung reacted instantly. He ran forward and pushed Jungkook down. The bullet hit the wall behind them. Jungkook gasped. Taehyung grabbed his arm. "I told you to stay in the room." Another gunshot echoed. Taehyung dragged him behind a pillar. "Don't move." Taehyung ordered. Then he stood up again. Within minutes, the gunfight ended. The assassins were defeated. Silence slowly returned to the mansion. But Jungkook's hands were shaking. He had never seen violence like that before. And the most shocking part, Taehyung had protected him the entire time. Later that night, the mansion became quiet again. The injured guards were taken away. Broken glass was cleaned. But Jungkook couldn't calm down. He sat on the couch in the living room, replaying everything in his mind. The gunshots, the chaos. The moment Taehyung shielded him, a door opened behind him. Taehyung walked in. His shirt sleeve was stained with blood. Jungkook immediately stood up. You're injured. It's nothing. Taehyung walked toward the bar and poured himself a drink. Jungkook frowned. That's not nothing. Taehyung didn't answer. But Jungkook walked closer anyway. Let me see. Taehyung raised an eyebrow. You hate me. That doesn't mean I want you bleeding everywhere. Taehyung hesitated, then slowly rolled up his sleeve. A deep cut ran across his arm. Jungkook winced. That needs stitches. I've had worse. Jungkook sighed and grabbed the first aid kit from the cabinet. Sit. Taehyung looked surprised, but he sat down. Jungkook carefully cleaned the wound. His fingers were gentle. For a moment, the room became quiet again. Taehyung watched him silently. You should have stayed in your room, Taehyung said. Jungkook didn't look up. You saved me. Taehyung didn't respond. Jungkook finally looked at him. You could have let me get shot. Taehyung's eyes darkened. I wouldn't. Why? Taehyung stayed silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, because you're the reason they came. Jungkook frowned. But you're the one who kidnapped me. Yes. Then why protect me so much? Taehyung's expression softened slightly. Because if you die, he stopped himself. Jungkook waited, but Taehyung never finished the sentence. Instead, he stood up. You should sleep. And he walked away, leaving Jungkook alone with 1,000 new questions. But one thing had changed. For the first time since the kidnapping, Jungkook no longer saw Taehyung only as his captor. He saw the man who had risked his life to save him. And that realization made his heart feel strangely heavy. Days turned into weeks. And somehow, Jungkook was still there, still inside the mansion, still under the watchful eyes of guards, still trapped with Kim Taehyung. But something had changed. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was familiarity. Later that evening, they sat in silence in the living room. Jungkook flipped through his camera photos. Taehyung read a file. Peaceful, almost normal. Until, why did you choose this life? Jungkook asked suddenly. Taehyung didn't look up. I didn't. Jungkook frowned. What does that mean? Taehyung closed the file slowly. It means I was born into it. Silence filled the room. Jungkook watched him carefully. For me, Taehyung continued quietly. Violence wasn't a choice. It was survival. Jungkook's chest tightened slightly. That explained a lot. You don't look like someone who enjoys it, Jungkook said softly. Taehyung's lips curved faintly. I don't. Another silence. But this one felt different. That night, Jungkook lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't stop thinking about Taehyung. The way he fought, the way he spoke, the way he protected him. This is crazy, Jungkook whispered to himself. He was supposed to hate him. He did hate him, right? Jungkook wasn't supposed to enter Taehyung's office, but the door was slightly open, and no guards were nearby. Just a quick look, Jungkook muttered. He stepped inside. The room was quiet, neat, organized. But something caught his eye, a stack of files on the desk. Jungkook hesitated, then picked one up. His eyes widened. Orphanage funding report. He flipped through it. Large amounts of money. Monthly donations. Another file. Hospital support program. Another. Shelter reconstruction fund. Jungkook froze. What? This didn't make sense. Taehyung was a mafia leader, a dangerous man. So why was he helping people? You shouldn't be in here. Jungkook jumped. Taehyung stood at the door, watching him. Jungkook quickly held up the files. What is this? Taehyung's expression remained unreadable. Put it down. No. Jungkook stepped closer. You're funding orphanages, hospitals, shelters. Taehyung didn't answer. Jungkook's voice softened. Why? A long silence followed. Then Taehyung walked into the room. I clean up messes, he said quietly. Jungkook frowned. What does that mean? Taehyung's eyes darkened. People like me create chaos. His voice dropped. So I fix what I can. Jungkook stared at him. This wasn't the answer he expected. You're not a monster, Jungkook said before he could stop himself. Taehyung froze. Don't say that, Taehyung said quietly. Why not? Because you don't know me. Jungkook stepped closer. Then let me. Silence. Dangerous. Taehyung looked away first. You shouldn't get involved in my world. Jungkook whispered, maybe I already am. The storm came without warning. Thunder echoed across the sky. Rain slammed against the windows. The entire mansion felt darker. Jungkook stood near the balcony watching the storm. His thoughts were a mess. Everything about this situation, everything about Taeyang. None of it made sense anymore. Footsteps approached behind him. You'll get sick standing there. Jungkook didn't turn. Why are you doing this? Silence. Then doing what? Jungkook finally faced him. Protecting me. The thunder cracked loudly. Risking your life fighting for me, keeping me here. His voice softened. Why? Taeyang didn't answer immediately. He just stood there, watching Jungkook, as if deciding something. Then he stepped closer. Because you saved me. Jungkook blinked. What? Another step closer. Years ago. Jungkook's heart started beating faster. I don't remember. You wouldn't. Taehyung's voice was quiet now, almost vulnerable. It was raining. Jungkook froze. You found me in an alley, bleeding, half dead. Fragments of memory flickered in Jungkook's mind. A rainy night. A stranger. Blood. You called an ambulance. Taehyung continued. You stayed until I was safe. Jungkook's eyes widened. That was you. Taehyung nodded slowly. I never forgot. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. You remembered me all this time? Jungkook whispered. Yes. A long silence followed. Jungkook's chest tightened. All this time, he did it because he wanted to protect him. Look, Jungkook stepped closer. You could have just told me. Look, Taeyang shook his head. Look, you wouldn't have believed me. Maybe not. Look, thunder echoed again. They were standing so close now. Look, too close. Jungkook could hear Taeyang's breathing. Look, feel the warmth of his presence. Look, Jungkook took a slow breath. This is insane, he whispered. But Hyung's lips curved slightly. I know, but neither of them stepped back. Why risk everything for me? Jungkook whispered. Taehyung's answer was soft. I owed you my life. That's not the only reason, he said quietly. Taehyung didn't respond, but his silence said everything.
Why?
The storm from that night hadn't left Jungkook's heart. Taehyung's words kept echoing in his mind. You saved me once, but something felt incomplete, like a truth still hidden. Look, the next evening, Jungkook found Taehyung in his office, staring at multiple screens filled with data. Stop hiding things from me, Jungkook said firmly. Taehyung didn't look surprised. Instead, he sighed quietly. It's time you know everything. Jungkook's chest tightened. Taehyung turned one of the screens toward him. A photograph appeared. Jungkook froze. It was one of his own photos, taken weeks ago at a corporate event. Look, at first glance, it looked normal, but when he looked closer, his breath caught. In the background, a hidden exchange. A man handing over a briefcase, guns, cash, a legal document. Jungkook's hands trembled. No way. Taehyung's voice was low. You didn't notice it when you took it. Jungkook shook his head slowly. I was just shooting the event. Taehyung nodded. But your camera captured something you weren't supposed to see. Jungkook looked up, fear rising. The chairman Park's criminal dealings. Silence, heavy, terrifying. That photo, Jungkook whispered. To destroy him. Yes. Jungkook stepped back. And he knows I have it? Taehyung didn't answer. Jungkook felt his chest tighten. Who is he? Jungkook asked quietly. Taehyung leaned back, his expression unreadable. On the surface, he's a respected businessman. Jungkook frowned. In reality, Taehyung's voice dropped. He runs one of the most powerful criminal empire in the country. Jungkook's stomach twisted. And my photo. Whose evidence? Silence filled the room. Jungkook's voice trembled. So he wants me dead because I. Yes. Taehyung stepped closer. That photo could destroy everything he built. Jungkook's hands clenched. I didn't even know. I know, Taehyung said softly. We didn't need to. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. You are not part of this world, Taehyung continued. But now you've been dragged into it. Jungkook swallowed. And you? Taehyung's lips curved faintly. I've always been part of it. That night, something felt wrong. Taeyang stood in the control room, watching the security screens. His instinct screamed, check the outer perimeter, he ordered. Look, one of his men nodded. Look, but something in Taeyang's expression changed. The realization, sharp, dangerous. Wait, across the mansion. A man in a black suit walked down the hallway. One of Taeyang's trusted men, or so everyone believed. He stopped near a security panel, typed in a code, and disabled it. Taeyang turned quickly. Someone leaked our location. Back in the living room, Jungkook suddenly felt it. That same feeling from the night he was kidnapped. Someone watching him. His grip tightened on the camera. Why do I feel like this? Then the lights went out. The darkness swallowed the mansion. What? Jungkook stood up quickly. His heart pounded. Footsteps echoed. Looked fast. Too many. Jungkook. Taeyang's voice rang out from the hallway. Urgent. Dangerous.
Get down! The windows shattered. Gunfire exploded through the mansion. This time, it was worse. Much worse. Masked assassins flooded inside more than before. Heavily armed, organized. This wasn't just an attack. This was a planned assault. Taehyung fought like a storm. Faster, more brutal, more desperate. Stay behind me, he shouted. Jungkook dropped behind a couch, shaking. Bullets tore through the walls. Glass shattered everywhere. Screams echoed. This isn't normal, Taehyung muttered under his breath. His eyes narrowed. Someone had betrayed him. Taehyung! Jungkook shouted. More attackers entered from behind. Taehyung turned, taking them down. Look at it was too many, even for him. Get him, one of the attackers yelled. Jungkook's heart dropped. They weren't here to kill him. They were here to take him. Everything happened too fast. Jungkook ran down the hallway, desperate, terrified. Taehyung, he shouted, but the sound of gunfire drowned his voice. Suddenly, looked. Strong arms grabbed him from behind. A cloth covered his mouth. No! He struggled, fought, kicked, but there were too many. His vision blurred again, just like that night. The last thing he saw was Taehyung fighting through the crowd, reaching for him, too far away. Darkness. Jungkook woke up in darkness, cold, tied to a chair. A single light flickered above him. Footsteps echoed, slow, confident. A man stepped into the light, older, well dressed, smiling. Jeon Jungkook, he said calmly. Jungkook's breath trembled. Who are you? Look. The man chuckled. I am disappointed. He stepped closer. You don't recognize the man who wants you dead. Jungkook's eyes widened. Chairman Park. Park smiled. Good. He picked up a photo. Jungkook's photo. You have something that belongs to me, Park said softly. Jungkook's voice shook. I didn't mean to. But you did, Park interrupted. His tone turned cold. That photo could destroy everything I built. Silence filled the room. Then Park leaned closer. So now, his voice dropped into a whisper. You have to die. Jungkook's heart stopped. Yeah, the mansion was war zone. Broken glass, blood. Kim Taehyung stood in the center of it all. His expression cold. They took him, he said quietly. No one dared to speak. Taehyung picked up a gun, checked it, loaded it. His movements were calm, too calm. Find Park's location. His voice dropped. Now, minutes later, we found it. Taehyung's eyes darkened. Good. A black convoy stopped outside a massive industrial building. Chairman Park's headquarters. Rain began to fall again. Taehyung stepped out of the car, dressed in black, eyes burning with rage. Open fire, and chaos erupted. Gunshots exploded through the air. Look, guards fell one by one. Taehyung moved like death itself, unstoppable. Inside the building, the alarm blared. Panic spread. Taehyung didn't stop. Where is he? He growled, grabbing one man by the collar. Basement. The man didn't finish. Taehyung dropped him and ran. Meanwhile, Jungkook sat in the dark room, barely conscious. Then, boom. Look, the door exploded open. Jungkook flinched. Light flooded the room. A a figure stepped through the chaos. Tall, familiar. Taehyung? Jungkook whispered. Taehyung's eyes locked onto him. Relief flashed across his face. Taehyung rushed forward, cutting the ropes. Almost desperate. Suddenly, clap, clap, clap.
Both of them froze. Chairman Park stepped into the room, smiling. I was wondering when you'd arrive. Taehyung stood in front of Jungkook instantly. Protective. Deadly. This ends tonight, Taehyung said coldly. Park laughed. Oh, I agree. And then, everything exploded into chaos. Jungkook watched in shock. Fear. Finally, Taehyung stood face to face with Park, eyes burning. It's over. Park smirked. You think you've won? Sirens echoed in the distance. Police. Park's smile faded. What? Taehyung's voice was cold. I already sent the evidence. Silence. Park's empire was collapsing. Within minutes, police stormed the building. Park was arrested. And just like that, the war ended. Days later, the bounty disappeared. The danger was gone. Jungkook was finally free. Free to leave. Free to go back to his normal life. Taehyung stood by the door, his expression unreadable. You can go now, he said quietly. Jungkook looked at him. Something in his chest hurt. You're letting me go? Taehyung nodded. That was always the plan. Jungkook stands at the door. His hand rests on the handle, but he doesn't open it yet. The silence behind him feels heavier than anything he's faced before. I should go, he says quietly. It's not what he wants, but it's what makes sense. Behind him, Taehyung doesn't move, doesn't argue, doesn't try to stop him, because he understands. Some things aren't meant to be held on to. Take care of yourself, Taehyung says after a moment. His voice is steady. Too steady. Jungkook nods, even though Taehyung can't see it. Then he opens the door and walks out. This time, he doesn't look back. Taehyung stood there long after the door closed, in a world that suddenly felt empty. For the first time, power meant nothing. Time skip. Months later, a small photography gallery stood on a peaceful street. Warm lights, soft music, laughter. Jungkook smiled as he handed a customer their photo. Thank you for coming. To everyone else, he looked happy, and he was. But sometimes, when the room grew quiet, he found himself staring at the door, just for a second, like he was waiting for someone. One evening, as the sun dipped low and golden light filled the gallery, the bell above the door rang. Jungkook looked up and froze. Taehyung stood there, different, no black suit, no guards, no darkness in his eyes, just a simple man. Jungkook's breath caught. Taehyung, Taehyung smiled softly. A real one. I left, he said quietly. Jungkook blinked. What? Taehyung stepped inside slowly. I left everything. A pause. The mafia, the power, all of it. Jungkook's heart started racing. Why? Taehyung looked at him, straight into his eyes. Because I realized something. His voice softened. If loving you means letting you go. A small breath. Then loving you also means becoming someone who can stand beside you. Jungkook's eyes filled with emotion. I wanted a simple life, Taehyung continued. Not for me. A faint smile. For us. Silence. Jungkook stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Like he was afraid this was a dream.
You really left everything? He whispered. Taehyung nodded. Yes. For me? A soft answer. For us. Jungkook let out a small shaky laugh, tears shining in his eyes. You're crazy. Taehyung smiled. I know. They stood there, close, because this time there was no fear, no danger, no walls, just two people, standing in the same world. Finally, Jungkook smiled. Soft, warm, real. Stay, he said quietly. Taehyung's eyes softened. I was hoping you'd say that. And this time, no one walked away.